This audio program may contain descriptions of violence and topics that may not be suitable for everyone. Please listen with caution.
Do you know what the most frightening thing in the world is? It's fear.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
Why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
So, to kick off, I have something I would love to talk about.
Okay.
I
love to talk.
kind of freaked out a little bit when this news came up. So, we are talking a little bit about the Kristen Smart case.
Okay, yes.
It is a case that I have deemed not to cover on this podcast because it is so in-depth.
Mm-hmm.
But we have mentioned it a few times, especially because my brother goes to Cal Poly. He lived in the dorm building where cadaver dogs hit on Kristen Smart's scent and where her accused murderer, Paul Flores, lived when he was at Cal Poly. They announced a couple of days ago that the defense, Paul Flores' defense, for those who don't know or who haven't been following it, I put up a few TikTok videos about this. So this happened in the 90s, in 1996, and Kristen Smart has never been found. They believe that Paul Flores, who was a classmate of hers at Cal Poly, attempted to rape her when she was walking home from a party, very inebriated, and that he murdered her either to keep her quiet or somehow in the process of doing so, and disposed of her body on his family's property.
Yes.
And there have been multiple searches and digs for her body at various locations, and none of them have really proven fruitful. So now a thorough search and the use of ground-penetrating radar has been used at his father's house, and authorities believe that she is buried there somewhere. They have not yet recovered her body, but they've recovered some belongings of hers. So it's looking more and more like they're getting very, very close.
And have they released everything they found?
I don't think so.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
I mean, they could have found remains.
But it was
we
enough.
Don't know.
Yeah, it was enough to be like, oh, this is.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it wasn't like.
And it was enough to arrest him and his
it was
father.
enough to arrest them. So,
So they had what was it? They had a hearing, a preliminary hearing on August 2nd. And this all happens in San Luis Obispo, California, where Cal Poly is.
Beautiful.
It is. It's gorgeous. The defense for Paul Flores, who is now 44, announced...
At the end of his life, just put him in jail.
They announced that they plan on calling a very special witness. Did you hear about this already? You did, because I sent it to you.
Yeah, you sent it to me.
So they're going to call Scott Peterson to the stand, and Scott Peterson...
Who's a better witness than Scotty
Right?
Peterson?
Because for those who don't know, Scott Peterson, who is in prison for the murder of his wife, Lacey
Which,
Peterson.
if you don't know, you need to listen to some podcasts about that one because it is brutal. What's that one? We listened to it. I think it's two women, and they go in depth about the autopsy.
Yes, that was a good podcast, and they stopped doing podcasts.
That was really good.
It was really good. And so Lacey Peterson, she was 7 months pregnant?
Yeah, I think
7 or 8
around
months
there.
pregnant.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I don't
she-
think she was quite. I don't think she was that heavily
Oh,
pregnant. I
really?
think it was like the beginning of the 7-month marker.
Okay, so
think.
she went missing, and then her body was discovered in an inlet. Was it an inlet or a pond? Or
I know it was
lake?
like a lake. I don't know.
Yeah, in
if
a
it was
body
like-
of water. Her and her baby were deceased, and her husband has, long since been
Convicted of that crime.
yes, and a lot of
And
stuff came out. He had an affair.
Fucking crazy. It's worth it to listen to podcasts that talk about the exact way he tries to cover up.
Yes.
Because, like, people are like, oh, but, well, we saw you guys get on a boat, and when you returned, she wasn't there. And he's like, she jumped off, or whatever. It's like, she did not.
He seems like a very not credible
person.
character, which is also why it's weird that he's being called.
He has to have, they have to think he has something.
Yeah, I'll go into that. But the connection here comes in because Lacey and Scott Peterson actually met at Cal Poly. They were both students. And I think they were in the agriculture school, both of them. And they had actually opened a, what's it called? Like kind of a plant nursery in San Luis Obispo after graduation.
I didn't know that was what they did.
Yes,
For some
they
reason,
did.
I imagined Scott Peterson to be a business major.
You'd think. But yeah, they were both into agriculture and farming.
No offense to business majors.
No. But so they had this plant nursery, and then eventually they moved a little bit farther away, I think to Sacramento. Or around that area.
Yeah.
And he eventually worked at this big fertilizer company. That's what he was doing when his wife died. But now the defense in Paul Flores's case, in Kristen Smart's murder, they're calling Scott Peterson to the stand to present him as a person of interest in Kristen Smart's disappearance.
I just don't understand what they think they're going to get out of it.
It's honestly, from my point of view,
last-ditch effort?
It's a distraction.
Yeah, I think so too.
They're trying to cast as much doubt as possible because right now Paul Flores is like the main suspect for 20 years.
You know, and it's kind of working because now guess what everyone's talking about? Like, oh shit, Scott Peterson is going on.
Well, and I just love how bad this looks for Scott Peterson.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine? He's still trying to prove his innocence, and then to be called in another murder case. Oh, it's so bad.
I mean,
for him.
he is a disgusting human being, and like I wouldn't put it against him to kill someone else.
But a lot of people, I've seen a lot in true crime groups, people really defending him lately. And really saying, like, they don't think he did it. Some new documentary came out, and they're like, oh, he didn't do it. I think he fucking did it.
Staircase all over again.
Yeah. I really think he did it. But I don't think he killed Kristen Smart.
I absolutely think he killed Lacey. I
Yes,
can't
I do
imagine
too.
anyone else.
He was the
killed
only
her.
one with motive.
Yeah.
So that's what some people are saying that Scott Peterson's lawyer said, quote, I think it was more of a publicity stunt to take the attention away from the defendant. I spoke to San Quentin and to Scott, and there has been no subpoena or any arrangements made for his testimony.
Imagine being Scott Peterson's lawyer and being like, I'm sorry, wait, what's happening?
Yeah. But apparently he did allegedly know Kristen Smart when they were at Cal Poly.
But, I mean, how well did he? I mean, I know technically
think
a
they knew
lot
each
of
other that
people
well.
who went to, like, William Patterson, but it doesn't mean I know them.
Oh, exactly.
You know, it's like,
yeah, I don't think
they
were close.
in my AP history or whatever. It's not.
They're just trying to deflect.
Isn't he older than her?
Or
no?
Let me see. Lacey went to she went to Cal Poly as an ornamental horticulture major.
Ooh.
Yes. And they met each other in mid-1994. So he was 2 to 3 years older than Kristen Smart.
Yeah. So it's not like they were in a lot of the same classes.
At this point, he and Lacey were already together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Kristen disappeared in 1996.
Yeah, 1996.
So it is very probable that they, well, I won't say probable. It's possible that they crossed paths. They attended the same school. It's a fairly large school, but they could have ran into each other in town. It's kind of a small town. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but I do not think he murdered Kristen Smart.
Yeah.
The evidence does not support that. So it was just this weird announcement.
How old was Kristen Smart? Wasn't she young?
I think she was 19.
Yeah. He was 24 when he went to Cal Poly. So I just feel
he
like
was older.
He was old enough where she would have like not they wouldn't have been in the same friend group. I can't imagine. And if they were, you would think it would have come up before. Like, hey, she was best friends with a convicted murderer.
Yeah, it would have been weird. But she was 19.
Oh, so young.
She was extremely
I just
young.
always see the picture of her, like that picture with her blonde hair and her big smile.
Yeah.
Like that's what I imagine in my head every time I think of her name.
Yeah, and Scott Peterson was born in 1972 and Kristen Smart was born in 77.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of an age difference.
Yeah, I just read somewhere that he was 24 when he went to Cal Poly. So.
Yeah. This is totally just kind of a sleazy legal move that really is going to serve no purpose.
Like,
but it was just so wild to read that
it is
as
wild.
Someone who's followed both of those cases.
And I was hoping when I first saw it, when you first sent it to me, I was hoping he was going to have information. Like, he was like, oh, I know him. He told me.
Yeah.
But then it turned out to not be that, and it got less exciting.
And
but
Scott
that
Peterson's
would have been amazing.
What?
Yeah, Scott Peterson's like, I don't think so, guys.
It would literally be like if one of us committed a murder and then called like Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
Like we went to the same school at one point.
Right.
Like that's it.
Yeah, like we were once friends with his cousin,
and that's it.
and that's it.
Yeah.
But now he murdered someone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so weird that it's like those two cases colliding. But I was just cracking up because it just looks so bad for Scott Peterson.
It does, and it's just like, oh yeah, remember this asshole? That's why I like that in some places there's no such thing as in prison for life. You have to revisit it every 25 years. I like the idea of like having to look some person in the eye and go, nope, still a piece of shit.
Yep, no, we still think you did it. So yeah, and at least that case is progressing because it's been so long.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to know more about that case, if you don't, go listen to Your Own Backyard.
It's so sad.
It's very sad.
I just think of like her lonely bones on that property for all these years.
And on his family's property.
And like, I think about 4th of July barbecues, you know what I mean? And her bones just like sitting there under the ground.
Yeah.
She's where she doesn't want to be. And her last moments on Earth were horrifying.
Horrible. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Her family
like,
doesn't know where she is.
Yeah. And we still technically don't know where she is. I am sure terrible things were done to her body.
Yeah. Even if, let's say, miraculously, Paul Flores didn't do it. He's still a piece of shit. Like, he has a bunch of rape accusations against him.
And he clearly knows enough about... Clearly he did something bad that night because there's enough evidence there. So either it's maybe her underwear, her clothes, shoes.
Well, her scent is in his dorm room.
Yeah, something... Well, they found something on that property that says he either knows something that happened to her or he did it.
Something, yeah.
So, like...
And they're charging the father with being an accomplice.
Yeah, so it's clearly enough to be like, oh, shit. You know, like, that's why it makes me think maybe they found a piece of her clothing.
Yeah.
And maybe it had both of their blood on it or DNA on it somehow. And it was, like, very clear that they both did it.
There was also one of the earrings she was wearing was found at a property related to the Floreses. It could have been that other earring.
And if you're totally innocent and you just found this girl, you know, you go, oh, we were walking home, she was super drunk, I hit on her, we went and had sex at this location, that's how her earring got there. If you were innocent, you would just say that.
Yeah, exactly.
You would just say that. So there's no reason for the earring to be there, you know?
Yeah.
Or if they found, let's say, her purse at his property. Well, if he's innocent, then just tell us the story of what, you guys hung out all the time, she left her purse there? Great, now we know. You know, like, clearly it's something.
There's something.
He couldn't explain away.
Yes. So, yeah, that was
I just wanna know
weird...
what it is.
I know.
Or maybe they found some bones, but not like complete human remains, you know?
It may also be hard to test them. Do you remember in that Natalie Holloway case in Aruba?
Yeah.
They found bones, but they weren't able to extract DNA from them. So
sometimes it decomposes.
Yeah,
or
and there just isn't, because you need,
depending on what it's in, where it's left.
You need the maternal DNA.
Yeah.
To be able to make a DNA match.
Yeah, and if things are like, especially, have you read, is it No Stone Unturned? I think that's the one. I might be getting, so No Stone Unturned is about the pig people who.
Oh, they use pigs?
Yeah, and also they're the ones who they get like when you donate your body to science. I want to say
like the
carcass.
body farm?
That's not correct.
Corpse.
Yeah, and they like bury it and they figure out how to tell like, oh, I know there's a body buried there based on like how the light hits it and shit like that. Oh yeah, I think
I forget what they're called, but
yes, but I think this is the book too. They're also the ones that tell you, like, if it's left out in sun, it's very easily, you know, like a body left in sun for a year will have almost no DNA versus a body that's just buried in soil, like stuff like that. They talk about that in that book, I think. But I have so many. I also have an autopsy book I read recently, and it might have been that one, but I think it's the No Stone Unturned.
Okay.
Or like if it's buried in certain soil, if the soil's really acidic, that could have a problem, depending on how, I don't know how to say this in a better way, cut up the body is.
Yeah, dismembered.
It can decrease the DNA over time easier.
Yes, No Stone Unturned, the true story of the world's premier forensic investigators.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. That's the book. That's a really good book. I learned about it from MFM, like one of the very first episodes.
Necrosearch. That's what it is.
Yes.
Necrosearch.
And they use pigs and stuff.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean,
I hope
there's every indication that this is coming to a conclusion.
And I hope if he is convicted, he tells people where the body is. I don't know why he might have been offered a plea deal and he denied it. But if I was them, I'd be like, we won't. Oh, well, it's California. There's no death penalty. No.
Yes.
There is?
I believe California still has the
I
death
thought
penalty.
George Duke Major got rid of that.
They don't actually execute people, though.
Because if it was me, I'd be like, hey, we won't put you on death row. We'll just send you to prison for life if you tell us where the body is.
Yeah. Gavin Newsom put a moratorium on the death penalty in 2019 in California.
Wow, that's
so they don't
recent.
They didn't abolish it, but no one gets murdered until there's like an order, you know?
That is so recent.
Do you listen to Ear Hustle?
No.
I love
that's
Ear
the
Hustle.
one from the prison, right?
From San Quentin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they talk about like the
poor
people
fucking
on
people.
death row and how, you know, San Quentin used to be like one of the most violent prisons in the country, and now it's like they have classes and it's pretty nonviolent.
Should every prison. Like, the prison system makes me so angry.
Me too.
I just want to do everything I can to make it better, but I'm just like one person. I have no power.
There are certain organizations you can support. Last Prisoner Project is a, you know, for drug crimes.
That's a very good one. Yeah, especially now that marijuana is becoming more legal in different places, they're really important to get people who have had marijuana crimes against them.
And let me see, I really want to talk about where. So I follow Forgive Everyone Company.
Okay.
And I have one of their shirts that says decarcerate, rehabilitate. Their whole mission is, well, they're like kind of a screen printing company, but they are totally for decarceration for nonviolent crimes.
Heck
so
yeah.
They're also really good. I recommend following them and
I had to get rid
of
my favorite shirt. That was the
Doritos
Roses
are
red,
savory.
Doritos are savory. The U.S. prison system is legalized slavery.
Why?
Because it got a stain, like a huge stain on it that I couldn't get out. I'm gonna buy another one. I forget where the proceeds go, but that's one of those shirts that like all the proceeds go to X.
Yeah,
you know, one of those prisons.
There
I think
are a
it's
lot
to
of great.
It was to fund classes. Like college
That's
classes
good.
for prisoners.
Yeah, I mean, that's how Ear Hustle got started. One of the hosts was a teacher. She went in to teach prisoners art.
Happens a lot.
Yeah, and they started this podcast.
The fact that people are like, oh, this person was on meth and now they're not a person and they don't deserve any rights or whatever is insane.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare that you get a Ted Bundy or someone who's like, yeah, treat them like dirt, like they deserve nothing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Just, most people who are imprisoned are not in there for those kind of offenses.
Yes. And a lot of them, even if it is an offense where it's like there is this one woman who's in prison right now, and I wish I knew her name, but I saw this TikTok and everyone was like, in the comments was like, she deserves to be in there. She killed 6 people. So when she was younger, her family was abused, and I think she lived in an apartment or like one of those houses where there's someone else on the other side. Mm-hmm. And to get out, she was like, oh, I'm going to run away. And to do so, I'm going to start a small fire. And when everyone runs out of the building, I'll run away.
Oh.
But the fire got out of hand and 6 or 7 people died in the fire.
And that's
horrible, tragic.
Accident. Yeah.
She's been in prison for like 50 years.
Well, it's like also on Ear Hustle, they interviewed Leslie Van Houten of the Manson family.
Wow.
And the amount of growth that woman has had.
She's in prison still?
She's been denied every time she's up for parole.
That's insane.
I think she should be released, honestly. She's done a lot of reflection. She's grown a lot as a person and psychologically.
I can't imagine she would be a repeat offender.
No. And she was also a vulnerable teenage girl.
And
like
she's had punishment. There's like 2 edges of the sword. It's like, okay, you do want to punish and say what you did was bad. You have to suffer for a little bit. But if they're not going to be a repeat offender, there's only so much suffering a person deserves. Like if they're going to get out and be a normal person in society.
Yeah, and also Leslie Van Houten never killed anyone.
She didn't.
No. They made her stab an already dead body.
And yes, she did. We're not saying she's not culpable at all.
But it's been a long ass time.
I thought she was out of prison.
Yeah. No, she's still in there. And she gets denied. I think last time the parole board actually granted her parole and then the governor struck it down.
And she's in San Quentin?
She's in California. San Quentin is men's
I was gonna say, I thought San Quentin was only men.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, that's enough for our little true crime talk. But today is a little bit more uplifting than our past couple of episodes, right?
Oh, yeah, survivors.
Yeah, because we're doing survivor stories again.
Because the beginning of my story, not that uplifting. But the end of my story, uplifting.
Yes.
So in my mind, I was like, it's not that happy.
Yeah, and you actually go first.
Yay. What did we do last time?
Last time, we did our Unsolved Mysteries episodes.
I thought
and that was pretty heavy.
That's fun. Okay, so think back to January 31st, 2004. We were in 4th grade. Flight 604, a Boeing 737 owned by Flash Airlines, had just plunged into the Red Sea, killing 148 people on board. Casey Kasem had finally stepped down from hosting America's Top 40 to Ryan Seacrest. And the Critics' Choice Movie Awards just announced that The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, had just won Best Film. So just a little flashback. Because I was like, 2004, like nothing big happened in 2004 in my life. So I was like, what else happened? And honestly, I thought these were going to help jog my memory, but I still can't remember one thing that happened to me. Yeah. I think that's the year that my brother used to do this thing where he used to fake punch me and see how close he could get to my face.
Oh, God.
And one time he accidentally really punched me and gave me a black eye, and then the next day was picture day. I think that might have been that year, 4th grade.
Gosh.
And I was also missing a tooth, unrelated. I had just lost it. And
so you looked like you had been in a bar fight.
Yeah. I had my front tooth missing and my black eye. We did not buy the photos that year.
I love that that's your thing.
So Terry Gendusa Nikolai was living in the town of Waterford, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like nothing good happens in Wisconsin.
I mean, Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer are from there.
Yeah, it seems like they're only known for murder and cheese.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which, when they come together, depending on your lactose intolerant,
I also
could
know
be hell on earth.
that they put cheese on their apple pie there, which
yes, a lot of people
do
in the Midwest.
Gross. Yeah, did I ever tell the story on here about how in my forensic psychology program, in one of our classes, we were watching a documentary on Ed Gein, and everyone was like completely fine when they showed pictures of like the crime scene and all the things he had made out of people. But then when they were like, yeah, he requested apple pie with a slice of cheese on it, everyone went, oh.
Yeah, it's like a thing. A lot of people do it.
Yeah.
Also, if you go to like a really fancy restaurant, sometimes they'll have it with cheese on it.
Yeah.
Have you seen those TikToks? It's like a LA real estate person who sometimes he shows LA houses and it's always like, this is a $5.8 million home.
Yeah.
Whatever. But sometimes he'll show like a gorgeous home. It's like a sprawling mansion with like 2 pools or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and you can get this house, and it's always like $150,000 if you're willing to live in this tiny town in Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's what all those good Zillow listings are.
Yes, it's so funny, which is just like, and at the end of some of them, he has one of my favorite lines where he's like, Wisconsin, where anyone can be a millionaire. So at 10:57 a.m. on January 31st, a call came into the Racine County 911 dispatch. And you can listen to this call. And they play clips of it in like, I don't know if she did an I Survive, but she's definitely done a few of those type shows. Yeah. And they play little clips of them. So essentially, the person on the phone is gasping for air. She rattles off an address, 26841 Oak Ridge Drive, Wind Lake, Wisconsin. I meant to look this up on Zillow to see if I could find the house. I didn't, but I'm sure it's still there.
Yeah.
But she can't get any other information out to dispatch. She's too out of breath. And then the call ends. So, of course, the dispatch sends a deputy to the location along with fire and rescue, so an EMT as well.
Mm-hmm.
They were prepared for anything because in this case, they didn't know, did she have a heart attack? Did she fall down the stairs? She could even be DOA at this point. So the police and EMT get there, and it's a house, a standalone home. All the lights appear to be off, and it's locked, so it appears no one's home, and no one's answering the door or responding to any of the yells. So protocol in this situation says that the police are able to break down the door because someone could be inside. If you have a heart attack or something, you might not be able to respond to the police.
Mm-hmm.
So the cops break down the door and they search the residence and they find no one, nor do they find like a struggle, like anything knocked over or anything as if someone was having an attack or being attacked or anything like that. But they don't really look because they're looking for a person in distress. So then they go to search outside, thinking maybe they tried to make it to a neighbor's. But also, it is Wisconsin. Like, a lot of people are chopping wood, things like that, out in the wintertime. So they were like, well, what? Maybe she
like
was
cut
out.
her hand off.
Cut her hand, something like that. You know, I almost said jet ski. What's the winter one? Snowmobile. Accident or something like that. Or I did know someone who once, well, I didn't know someone. My brother knows someone who once cut down they were cutting down tree branches and the tree branch fell on them. They were fine, but they couldn't get up like someone.
Yeah.
So, you never know. Okay. The next step here, after they couldn't find anyone, was to call around to any hospitals and to knock on the doors of neighbors and be like, have you seen anything? Anyone in distress? And they begin to wonder a little bit if maybe this is just a prank.
Yeah.
But they still do their due diligence, and they look around. But during this time, when they're looking and knocking on doors, 911 gets another call from a man who's worried about his wife. He says his wife, Terry, went to pick up her 2 daughters from her ex-husband, and it's been a while. Like, she should have been home like 3 hours ago. And he couldn't get in contact with her. Nick, who's Terry's husband, requests a wellness check. Immediately, the dispatcher recognizes the address.
Oh.
The address he provides to 911 is the same as the one from the woman's phone call. So now the pieces are kind of getting placed together. Nick also lets them know that the house belongs to Terry's ex, David Larson. So now the police have the name of the caller and also the name of the person who owns the house. But still no real information. They don't know what's happening. You know, they also know that they're starting to think, okay, where are the 2 girls too?
Yeah.
During the call, the dispatch operator asks if Terry has any known health issues, a history of shortness of breath, asthma, anything that could have led her to the state she called in, where maybe the ex took her to a hospital or something. Okay. You know, they're trying to explain that away first. Nick says that she's healthy, but he does say that Terry's ex has a history of domestic violence and a short temper, and he's very worried that something could have happened.
Oh, no.
Apparently, the divorce had been incredibly heated and bitter, and the custody battle for their 2 girls had been even worse. At the time of the 911 call, the couple's children were Amanda, aged 4, and Holly, aged 6. Terry had actually decided to leave Dave 3 years earlier when the oldest daughter started becoming aware of the abuse that she was suffering. She would cry and hide under tables, begging for Daddy to please stop. And when Terry saw this, she knew that it was no life for her kids, and so she packed up and left.
Yeah, good call.
In the end, Terry was given custody rights of the girls, but David had visitation rights. So a few times a week, the girls would go from mom to dad. They lived in the same town, so.
Okay. A few times a week is a lot.
Yeah, I think it was like, I think sometimes if people live in the same town, dads have like days.
Okay.
So instead of like, oh, you get them every other weekend, it's like, oh, you can have her Mondays and Thursdays, and then Saturdays they sleep over or whatever, you know? So Terry was smart about things. She only wanted to do pickups and drop-offs in public places like restaurants or parks because she just didn't feel safe around David alone. But eventually David said that if she wanted the girls back, she was going to have to start picking them up from his house.
Okay.
And so she was really left with no other choice because he was like, no, I'm not leaving the house. So if you want them, come get them. And it only got worse when Terry decided to remarry Nick. David claimed that in the eyes of God, Terry and him were still married. And so by Terry choosing to remarry, she was choosing to go against God and live in sin.
Ugh.
Yeah, doesn't he sound like a peach?
Yeah, he's gross.
So, not only was Terry now missing, and David had a horrible history of abuse and violence, but Holly and Amanda were also missing, and no one could get a hold of David. With this information, the police obviously think that David kidnapped them all and did who knows what. So they get Nick to describe what Terry was last wearing. She was in like a black jumpsuit. It's very cold. Obviously, It's the winter time in Wisconsin in January. So it's like a matching, the zip up with the black sweatpants. And it's particularly really cold that day. It had even like flurried off and on, those winter days that are like gray and nothing's really accumulating on the ground, but it's just so cold that there's like moisture. Yeah. So the police began asking neighbors again if they had seen Terry's car or her, or had seen David driving her car, or anything that's helpful. One neighbor does say that he saw David towing Terry's car earlier in the morning. At the time, he had assumed that the car had just broken down, but the details seemed a lot more sinister, knowing that they were all missing. The cops knew at this point. They were pretty sure David did it. But then they find out that it's actually the 3-year anniversary of Terry and David's divorce that very day, which is like extra uh-oh. Nick informs the police that Terry had just found out that she was pregnant as well.
Ooh.
But at this point, no one really has any real evidence, nor do they know where they could have gone. They've searched the roads going to and from. Like, if the car really did break down and David had tried to bring them home, they, like, searched those areas, those roads and stuff to make sure that that's not what happened. But obviously they couldn't find them. That is until another 911 call comes in. So Terry once again called into 911. She's gasping and it's really hard to hear her. I actually listened to this part. It's really, really staticky. But she says, "My ex-husband is trying to kill me." She then gives David's name and they ask if she knows what car she's in. And she confirms that she's in his green pickup truck and that her hands are duct taped. And it's really hard for her to breathe. So she actually managed, because it was like one of those old flip phones, she managed to just feel the buttons because
okay.
So now they know for a fact that Terry has been abducted. She has told them, "It's my ex-husband and I'm in his green truck."
Yeah.
But the police aren't able to understand anything past that, and then the phone goes dead. But now the police are able to put out an Amber Alert, because they can assume that the kids are with Terry, so they can put out an Amber Alert for Terry, the kids, and David.
Good.
And just as an update, the average temperature in Wisconsin at this time, 25 degrees during the day. That's the high.
During the day?
Yeah.
God damn it.
So it's freezing cold. So they're like, we have to try and find her by nightfall because
they're going to freeze.
If he just like dumps her in the woods or something and knocks her unconscious, she's going to freeze to death. So the police are able to re-enter the home immediately under exigent circumstances, which basically means that they don't need a search warrant because whatever they find in the home could potentially save someone's life.
Yes.
I didn't know that was a thing. But they can't take anything from the property. They can just search it. And when they get a warrant, then they can take things.
Yes, because there are certain situations where they believe that there's like something happening imminently that they can stop, and in that case they can waive a warrant.
Yes. Like if they were like, "Oh, Reppy has a bomb," and the plans to wherever she's going to put that bomber in her apartment, they could just come in.
Yes.
Like they don't need a warrant for that.
If they can prove that.
If they could prove, obviously. If they were like, "Look, we have this recording of her planning a bomb." So at this point, they're trying to find the girls as well. So they actually, this is really kind of dark, but they start checking like dresser drawers and stuff because they were like, they're small enough where if they were dead, like unable to answer, you could definitely just stuff a child right in there. They don't find any. They don't find any.
Well, it's good that they looked everywhere.
Yes,
you know?
but they look everywhere.
Yeah.
And because no one's responded, they don't think they're going to find anyone alive necessarily, but, they just look just in case. Also, sometimes kids are really scared and they don't want to answer, so they were like, let's just make sure they're not, like, in a crawl space or something. They can't find anything that leads to the whereabouts of where the girls are, and without a warrant, like I said, they can't remove anything from the property, but they can search everything. And one of the detectives comes across the divorce decree, and on it lists everything that, all the properties they have and stuff like that. And they notice that David actually has 3 properties in Milwaukee.
Oh.
The police call the Milwaukee Police Department, give them the addresses, and ask them to search there for Terry's car, or her, or the children, or David, or any signs. And then they make another discovery inside the house. So there's a box with a handgun at David's property, but it's empty. So now they're working under the assumption that David is armed.
Yes.
Yeah. Then the detectives in the living room, David's house has like boxes all over the place. So they're moving boxes, and they notice, as they're moving around boxes, they notice a blue garbage can filled with duct tape and the sweatpants that Terry was wearing that day.
Oh, no.
So not only is it like 20 degrees out, she has no pants on.
Yes.
Next to the blue garbage can, kind of like tucked under the table, they had to move boxes to get to it, is a large blob of drying blood. There's also a bloody rag in the sink and blood splatter on a nearby wall. One of the detectives said that with the amount of blood found at the scene, you would have assumed the person to be dead or unconscious, but they do know she made it at least somewhat because she made the 2 911 calls. But the cops aren't sure how much time she has left with her injuries. Not only is she bleeding, she has no pants in the cold, and apparently you can get frostbite in 30-degree weather in as little as 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But then something happens. The police in Milwaukee find Terry's car near one of the 3 properties. And they pop open the trunk, and they think, like, this police officer, he's in one of the interviews, and he's like, I thought I was going to find the body of 2 children that day. But he pops it open, and it's empty.
Oh.
So the cops have now searched all 3 properties and the surrounding areas extensively. They've interviewed people. And Milwaukee's, like, a very populated place. So no one really saw anything because someone parking a car is not like...
Yeah.
They then start thinking about other places David could have gone. So it turns out he's an air traffic control person in a town in Illinois. In my mind, I was like, wait, Wisconsin to Illinois. But it's like an hour, not even.
And that's a good job.
So they call the town police department and they get permission to search the area, like around the airport and things, and where he works, obviously. They also gather David's schedule and wait outside to see if David shows up for work, because that night he is scheduled to work. The crazy thing, he does show up to work that night. He's like, look, I can't
miss my shift.
I just got back from my vacation. They're going to be super pissed if I take another day. So when they stop David, it's just him. He's in the car, in the green truck. He's calm. He goes with the detectives for questioning. He says he hasn't seen Terry, but there must be some logical explanation. He's like, what? That's not like Terry to just, like, go missing. He says that, so when they search the car, well, as they're taking him in, so they want to impound the car, so they drive him to the station. But as the cop is searching the truck before leaving, they noticed blood in the back truck bed. And so he says, when they interview him, Terry was supposed to pick up the girls around 10 a.m. When she didn't show, he couldn't get a hold of her. So he left a message and he left his girls at his girlfriend's house. They go and search his girlfriend's house, and guess what? The kids are fine. They were at his girlfriend's house the whole time. But no one knew about the girlfriend, so no one could reach them. I was like, really? You couldn't put a note down or something? So that part of the story is true. But then they asked David why he was in Milwaukee earlier, and he's like, what? I wasn't in... That's crazy. I don't... That's weird. I wasn't in Milwaukee.
But also, he owns 3 properties there.
Yeah, he could have just been like, I was checking on something.
What?
I have a bunch of property there. I'm a mogul.
Yeah, I guess.
He says he's never there, even though Terry's car was there and his cell phone. Like, they know his cell phone was there.
Yeah.
The cops tell him that. They're like, hey, we know your cell phone pinged in that area, and they say we found her blood in your car. They hadn't tested the blood yet, but, white lies. And then
they're allowed to do.
Yeah. And then he starts fidgeting, and when the detective looks at what he's rubbing, like he's rubbing his jeans, and when they look down.
It's a blood spot.
Yeah, there's a big blood spot, which I was like, dude, come on, change your pants.
Yeah.
And
also drawing attention to it when he's trying to
rub
cover it.
Rub your dick.
Yeah, right?
So then David tells them the quote-unquote truth. He says Terry was supposed to pick them up at 10 a.m. and he was bending over putting the girls' homework in their book bag. He's such a good dad. God bless him. There is a clip online where it's like a reenactment, but I'm wondering if it's quote for quote, because he spends like 2 minutes talking about how he was like putting the girls' homework in his book bag as if that made him a saint. And I was like, you're their dad.
Yeah, that's kind of the bare minimum.
When he turns around from their book bag, Terry is standing over him. Her pants were around her ankles. You know how we do.
Is she 80?
And she's also holding a hammer in her hand as if she's about to swing it down on him.
Because the best swinging position is when your ankles are constricted. It'd
be one thing to be like, she had her pants down and was like, fuck me, David. That's not the story. It's pants down, but still going to kill.
Yeah.
Okay. I would have at least said her pants were off, because then maybe you could argue, oh, she took her pants off to not get blood on them. But like, pants around the ankle is a weird.
It's super weird.
When people lie, they tend to keep small facts. So at some point, her pants probably were around her ankle, and he like remembered that, and so he just said it. She's, going to swing a hammer down. Of course, the police are not believing this, but they let him talk because they're like, the more he talks, the more he'll back himself into a corner. He tells the investigators that he was so fearful for his life, he reached beside his blue trash can where a baseball bat was, and he grabs it. He then swings the bat and hits Carrie right in the face.
Oh.
Then David says he remembers grabbing duct tape and nothing else after that. It's all blur.
Oh, great.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
I would remember, I think, attacking a woman, my ex-wife, and like, killing her.
Yeah.
But, okay, sure.
But the duct tape, that was important.
Yeah, he was like, no, I know it was duct tape.
Yeah.
Not packing tape specifically.
Yeah.
What if it was like the hot pink cheetah print one?
That would be a little bit
A
fun.
little fun? It's not. It's boring silver. Boo. The investigators spent 6 hours trying to get him to tell what happened, where he put them, her, what really happened. And again, now it's nightfall because they had to just wait at the airport until he came, and his shift started at night. And so now she's wherever she is, she spent all night without pants.
Yeah.
In what you can presume is
freezing.
Outside freezing.
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't put her up in a hotel, So after 6 hours, he doesn't give them anything. He asks for a break.
Mm-hmm.
It gives the investigators time to give him an orange jumpsuit and take his clothes from him.
Yeah.
So that they can test the blood.
Good.
And also see if there's any evidence. So in his jeans pocket, I'm presuming it's his wallet, which is stuffed. So that's one of David's big problems. Everything is an attachment to him. So that's why everything is in his house. He has a bunch of boxes and stuff. Mm-hmm. He's kept every receipt, every business card.
So he's kind of a hoarder.
He's kind of a hoarder.
Yeah.
So it's stuffed with receipts and papers. It takes them an additional 4 hours to go through the wallet and call all the businesses and be like, they just want to know who he's seen the day before when Terry disappeared. But they have to call for that, So they finally find a business card for a storage unit place, and the police call and they say,